Hey DCC, and welcome to another edition of Morning Coffee. Hey, I'm a father of 5 daughters, and so when you have kids, you notice that there's differences in behavior, and not just between all the kids and how they're different, but in this regard. When I'm in the room or I'm around, or they know that they're in eyesight of me, right? My kids act completely different than they do when I'm not around and I can't see them. And so as a parent, you always hope that, hey, I would love for you to act the way that you act when I'm in the room when I'm not around, right? I'd love for you to have the same behavior when I'm not standing there as when I'm standing there. And there's this way in which Paul kind of relates this in Philippians 2. He's kind of going through the same experience. He's spent some time with them, and now he's going to leave, and so he's left, and he's writing this letter, and he's encouraging them, but he knows that there's going to be a temptation that when he's not around, they're going to kind of spark up and act a little differently. And so I think there's something that we can gain from application if we look at this. So let's just read in Philippians 2, starting in verse 12. It says, "Therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, so now, not only as in my presence," right, when I'm around, "but much more in my absence, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you, both to will and to work for his good pleasure." In other words, you don't need me. My presence doesn't mean anything. You don't need me to be good. God can empower you to be good. In verse 14, "Do all things without grumbling or disputing, that you may be blameless and innocent, children of God without blemish, in the midst of a crooked and twisted generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world, holding fast the word of life, so that in the day of Christ I may be proud that I did not run in vain or labor in vain." And so Paul's point is, hey, it's time to take a next step in maturity. I was there and I shared the gospel with you and you became followers of Christ. And when I was around you, you started kind of falling in line and doing the right things. But now I'm gone. And what I don't want to have happen is that you fall back into the same old way that you used to live. And yet he knows that they're in the world, right? That they can't help the fact that in the city of Philippi there are people who just don't believe in Jesus, and they're wicked. They do terrible things. And they used to be those types of people. And so Paul gives them this charge of, hey, when I'm gone, you still need to do the right thing. Yes, I understand that you're in a wicked city, but it doesn't matter. God is going to empower you. You don't need me, you need God, and God can empower you to do the right thing. But then he puts this extra thing in that I don't want you to miss, because he says you're going to be lights to the world, or lights to that community. And so I hope that resonates with you, in how we want you to live your life, right? It's real easy for us to get kind of caught up in coming to church on the weekends and maybe hanging out in a small group or being around church people. And it may be easier for us to put on this image of, this is how I've got all my crap together and I do everything good and everything like that. But for most part, if any of my friends, the people in my life, my family and everything, were to see me in what I look like Monday through Friday, they probably wouldn't see a big difference in my behavior. I still, gossip about people, tear people down. I act just like everybody else. I will lie if it suits me. I'll fill in the blank, right? I don't want to go through every sin that you could possibly commit, but you get the point, right? There's this sense in which it's kind of playing church, right? And it's not really So when you're around the people who share the gospel with you, or you're around Christians, you're around people in the church, it's easy to kind of fall in line or behave. But when we get out there in the real world, it's a little bit different, right? And so we need to understand that it's important for us to do the right thing when no one else is there looking, when there's no one else from church, when there's, not your wife isn't around, your husband isn't around. It's important to still continue to do the right things. And one of the biggest reasons is that's our whole way to win our community, right? And I think one of the coolest things that we have coming up is we have Yemi, who was running City Serve and has spent a huge portion of his time in Colorado Springs trying to help join the efforts of people in our city and churches in our city and groups like Springs Rescue Mission and other groups to impact our city for good, to do the right thing, to be out there, and in that sense, be a light to the community. And we call that at DCC, we call that living on mission, right? We discover our stories, we experience Jesus, but we're out there to try to live also on mission, because that's how our community is going to find Jesus. That's how our community is going to find the peace and the hope and the forgiveness and the mercy that they need for their lives. That's how they're going to find God, is when we do the right things. And when we act like everybody else and we live a life that is full of wickedness and sin, and we don't strive to do the right thing, then they don't see that hope in us. They don't see Jesus and his love in us, right? And City Serve is a perfect example of that, because City Serve and helping out with projects and being involved and helping, different groups in our city, whether it's through construction and building something to help them out, or, helping them paint a wall or add another building so that they can house more homeless people, whatever the things we do, right? You had a choice where you could have just stayed home and watched football. You had a choice where you could have just said, nah, I'm going to go up in the mountains and I'm going to go hiking or skiing, or I'm going to invest a little me time. But you made a conscious decision to say, no, I want to serve another group or people or segment of people in our community. And in that sense, you stand out against most of our community. You are doing something that is sacrificial and loving, and we say, sharing the love of Jesus with no strings attached, right? That's what we say. That's living on mission, and that's what we want you to do. And so this is what Paul's encouraging the church at Philippi to do, and I think it applies directly to you and I. We need to be going out there in our lives and finding ways to get on mission and to share the love of Jesus with no strings attached, right? I'm not doing it to get something. I'm not doing it to manipulate something. I'm simply giving somebody the love of Jesus without any expectation of anything in return. And that's what we're built on, right? That's part of the DNA of DCC. So today, this week, try to look for opportunities where you can share the love of Jesus and have absolutely no strings attached, okay? Have a good day.